A simple woman walked into her billionaire husband's luxury hotel and was humiliated. The staff refused her a room, mocked her appearance, and treated her like a nobody. But when he arrived, what happened next left everyone speechless. The revolving doors of the Mitchell Grand Hotel spun slowly as Beth Mitchell stepped inside. The contrast between her and the extravagant lobby was impossible to ignore. At 32, Beth had a quiet confidence in her gaze, but the long day teaching art classes to underprivileged kids showed in her tired shoulders. Her paint-splattered gray t-shirt, worn jeans, and light denim jacket made her look completely out of place. Her brown hair was pulled back into a simple ponytail, hidden beneath a gray and white trucker cap. Meanwhile, crystal chandeliers sparkled above marble floors, and well-dressed guests sipped cocktails near a grand piano. Beth adjusted her backpack, suddenly self-conscious of the dried paint under her fingernails. Still, she walked up to the front desk, where two perfectly dressed receptionists stood waiting. She had just spoken to her husband Robert 30 minutes ago. After her long day, she'd admitted she was too exhausted to drive all the way home. Robert, ever thoughtful, had told her to stay at the hotel for the night. "I'll let them know you're coming," he'd said, with the same warmth that had kept their 5-year marriage strong. It wasn't the kind of match people expected, a billionaire hotel magnate and a passionate, small-town art teacher, but their bond had always been deeper than appearances. From the beginning, they had an understanding. Beth would keep her independence, and she wouldn't pretend to be a trophy wife. Her work mattered too much to give up. Beth smiled politely at the receptionist, reading the name tag. "Good evening. I'm Beth Mitchell. My husband should have called ahead about a room for me." Bradley, the receptionist, gave her a quick once-over, eyes lingering on the backpack, the cap, the casual clothes. His smile tightened. "Do you have identification, madam?" His voice carried a slight edge, one Beth didn't miss. "Of course," she said, fishing out her driver's license. "Elizabeth Mitchell." Bradley examined the ID longer than necessary, then glanced at his female colleague, Emma. They shared a look. "And you say Mr. Mitchell arranged a room for you?" Bradley asked. His tone made it clear he didn't believe her. "Yes, just a few minutes ago. Robert Mitchell. He owns this hotel," Beth replied, staying calm even though she could feel her patience slipping. Emma leaned forward, lowering her voice just enough to make it more insulting. "Ma'am, this is a 5-star luxury hotel. Perhaps there's been some confusion." "There's no confusion," Beth said. "I'm Elizabeth Mitchell, Robert Mitchell's wife." By now, the lobby had grown quieter. Guests nearby had started to notice. Some were clearly listening in. "Of course you are," Bradley replied, a smirk creeping into his voice. "And I'm the Queen of England." Emma crossed her arms. "We've seen this before. People think dropping the Mitchell name will get them free upgrades." "I'm not dropping names, I'm telling the truth." The couple nearby had stopped their conversation. The woman was whispering to her partner, clearly intrigued. Bradley straightened up. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, putting heavy sarcasm on the name, "is a former model. She's on multiple charity boards. She was at the Met Gala last month." His eyes scanned Beth's jeans and stained shirt. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at a different establishment. One that matches your, circumstances." Beth felt heat rise in her face, not because of embarrassment, but because of what his words represented. The belief that wealth looks a certain way. That respect has to be earned with expensive clothes and flawless makeup. "My husband called ahead. Please check your system." Bradley let out an exaggerated sigh, typed for a moment, and looked back at her. No reservation under Beth or Elizabeth Mitchell. No note from Mr. Mitchell. How surprising. "Could you call him, please?" Beth asked, trying to stay composed. "Call Mr. Mitchell?" Emma laughed. "He's one of the richest men in the country. We don't just call him because someone in a trucker hat claims to be his wife." Beth held back a sharp reply. "Then call the manager on duty." "That won't be necessary," Bradley replied. "We're busy with real guests." He motioned to the line forming behind her. The cozy inn, about 6 blocks down, might have space. A well-dressed older man in line spoke up. "Is there a problem here?" Emma turned to him. instantly switching tones, smiling warmly, respectful. Not at all, sir. Just helping this person find more suitable accommodations. I'm not leaving, Beth said quietly but firmly. My husband is Robert Mitchell. This is his hotel. I want to speak to the manager. Now. Bradley's smile disappeared. Security will escort you out if necessary. Right on cue, a security guard approached. His name tag read, Frank. Everything all right here? He asked. This woman is refusing to leave, Bradley explained. She's claiming to be Mrs. Mitchell and causing a disturbance. Frank looked at Beth, his expression unsure. Ma'am, I'll have to ask you to come with me. More guests were watching now. A few had even pulled out their phones. Beth's cheeks burned, but she stood her ground. I'm not causing a disturbance. I'm trying to check into my husband's hotel after a long day of work. Frank hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, but professional. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be, ma'am. I want to speak to your general manager, Beth said. Bradley stepped in again. Richard is at a conference in New York. I'm the most senior staff member on duty. Then call Richard, Beth said. Or better yet, call Robert Mitchell himself. I guarantee he'll be very interested to hear how you've treated his wife. An elegant woman nearby turned and stared. And suddenly, the entire lobby fell silent. A woman in designer clothes stepped forward. She'd been quietly watching the entire exchange. Perhaps you should check again, she said to Bradley. This seems like a misunderstanding that could become awkward. Bradley straightened his tie. Mrs. Pembroke, I assure you, he said, we know the Mitchell family well. This woman is not Beth Mitchell. Mrs. Pembroke looked at Beth with a mix of pity and embarrassment. Of course, she said. I just thought, it's fine, Beth cut in gently. I appreciate your concern. She turned to Bradley, eyes steady. I'm going to sit in the lobby and wait for my husband. He'll be here soon. Bradley's voice lost all politeness. I've been more than patient, he said sharply. Frank, please escort this person out, now. The security guard stepped forward, clearly reluctant. Ma'am, please don't make me remove you physically. Beth could feel the weight of every eye in the lobby. The guests, the staff, everyone witnessing her public humiliation. For a moment, she considered walking out, just leaving, avoiding the scene. But something inside her said no. You're making a mistake, she said softly. The only mistake, Emma interrupted, was letting you through the door. We don't serve your kind here. Gasps echoed through the lobby. Beth's cheeks burned, but not from shame, from anger. My kind? She asked. People looking for handouts, Bradley said loud enough for everyone to hear. People pretending to be something they're not. Frank placed a hand on her arm. Ma'am, please. Beth pulled away. Don't touch me. The tension in the air was thick now. Some guests looked uncomfortable. Others, entertained. Some were even recording. Beth stood alone, surrounded by luxury, yet made to feel like she was nothing, simply because of how she looked. We don't serve the poor, Emma hissed. Her mask of professionalism had vanished. Even Bradley turned to stare at her, stunned by her words. And for a moment, time stopped for Beth. Because in that instant, she wasn't just the wife of a billionaire. She was every person who had ever been dismissed for how they dressed. Every child she taught, who'd been told they didn't belong. Every single dreamer, judged before they'd even had a chance. Frank's grip returned to her arm. Ma'am, I need you to leave, now. He started to guide her toward the doors. But just as she took a step, the revolving glass doors behind her spun, and through them walked a man in a tailored navy suit, his stride confident and precise. Robert Mitchell had arrived. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a moment. Now, let's get back to the lobby, because everything's about to change. Robert Mitchell entered the Mitchell Grand with quiet authority. At 45, his salt and pepper hair and sharp features made him instantly recognizable. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't rush. But the power he carried was unmistakable. All he wanted was a quiet night and a warm meal with his wife. Instead, what he saw stopped him cold. Beth, his wife, being dragged toward the exit. By security. Robert took it in calmly, carefully. The crowd watching. The flushed cheeks of his wife. The smug receptionists. The silence that filled the room like fog. Nobody noticed him at first. And that was fine. In business, Robert had learned people reveal who they truly are when they think no one important is watching. As he moved closer, he heard the whispers. Can you believe she said she was Mrs. Mitchell? Some people will say anything. Beth saw him. Her eyes met his. There was relief in them, but no drama, no outburst. Just the quiet strength he had always loved about her. He walked straight to Frank and placed a calm hand on his shoulder. Excuse me, Robert said, voice low. Is there a problem here? Frank turned, startled. Recognition dawned. Mr. Mitchell, sir. You can release my wife's arm now, Frank. The words hit like thunder in a still room. Frank let go instantly, stunned. Your wife? Robert walked to Beth's side and gently wrapped his arm around her. Are you all right? He asked. She nodded. Just a misunderstanding, she said softly. The reception desk had gone still. Bradley and Emma looked like ghosts drained of color, frozen in place. The entire lobby had gone silent. Robert, Bradley said, his voice cracking. We had no idea. Robert raised a hand. Instantly, the words died in Bradley's throat. I'd like to understand, Robert said evenly, exactly what happened here. He looked around at the crowd, the staff, the silence. Bradley swallowed. His professional mask had completely shattered. There's been a terrible misunderstanding, sir. We didn't recognize Mrs. Mitchell. You didn't recognize her, Robert repeated. So, you called security to have her removed. She didn't look like, Emma began, then stopped. The damage was done. Didn't look like what, exactly? Robert asked, eyes locked on hers. Emma tried to speak, but her voice failed. Like someone who would be Mrs. Mitchell? Robert's voice was still calm, but no one mistook it for kindness. And in your professional opinion, Emma, what should Mrs. Mitchell look like? Silence. Beth gently squeezed his hand. A silent reminder. Don't humiliate them, even now. Robert nodded. Perhaps, he said, addressing the entire room. This is a moment for reflection, a chance to think about how quickly we judge someone based on appearance. He turned toward the crowd. How many of you assumed my wife didn't belong here, simply because of what she was wearing? Several people looked away, uncomfortable, ashamed. Mrs. Pembroke stepped forward. I apologize, she said to Beth. I knew something felt wrong. I should have spoken up sooner. Beth smiled gently. Thank you for trying. Robert turned to the front desk. Bradley, Emma, my office. Now. He looked at Frank. You too. The three moved toward the elevators, pale and shaken. Robert turned once more to the silent lobby. The Mitchell Grand was founded on one principle: exceptional service for all guests, not just the ones who fit a certain profile. Today, that principle was forgotten. Then he took Beth's hand and walked her to the private elevator. The crowd parted in silence. On the top floor, in Robert's private office, the view of the Portland skyline sparkled in the windows. But no one was admiring it. Bradley, Emma, and Frank stood stiffly in front of Robert's desk. Beth sat quietly to the side, her cap on the floor, her backpack at her feet. Robert stood by the window, holding a framed photo of himself decades younger, in janitor's clothes, in front of a shabby old motel. I started Mitchell Luxury Properties 15 years ago, he said. My first hotel? A 28-room roadside motel in Seattle. I cleaned the rooms myself. He placed the photo on the desk. My father was a janitor. My mother worked 2 jobs as a waitress. These suits? This office? They came later. Bradley shifted uncomfortably. Sir, we had no idea it was Mrs. Mitchell. We never would have. That's the problem, Robert interrupted. You shouldn't treat anyone the way you treated her, whether she's my wife or not. Emma opened her mouth. We have standards to maintain. Let me tell you about standards, Robert said, his voice sharp. My wife runs an art program for children. Children who come from nothing. Children she believes in. Today, wearing those exact clothes, she helped a child speak through painting for the first time in months. That's her standard. What's yours? Frank stared down at his shoes. I was just following protocol. A protocol that removes someone for not fitting your image of wealth? Beth finally spoke. Robert, they were doing what they believed was right. That's the real issue. Her voice was calm, but strong. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. Because somewhere along the way, they were taught that respect is earned through appearance. That some people deserve dignity, and others don't. Bradley's voice was quiet. Mrs. Mitchell, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, Beth said. Just listen. Robert stepped behind his desk. Here's what's going to happen, he said. Tomorrow morning, I'm calling every general manager in the Mitchell Group. We're overhauling our entire training program, top to bottom. And then, he turned to Emma. We don't serve your kind here, Robert said slowly, looking directly at Emma. Will never be uttered in any of my hotels again. Am I clear? Emma nodded, her face flushed with embarrassment. Frank, Robert continued, security's job is to protect guests, not intimidate them. New protocols will be developed immediately. Frank stood a little straighter. Yes, sir. And Bradley, Robert said, turning his gaze to the duty manager. The tone you set influences everyone. Your actions today reflected a culture I never wanted in my hotels. Bradley looked pale. Will we be terminated, sir? The question hung in the air. The 3 staff members stood frozen, waiting for the verdict. Beth stepped to Robert's side. They exchanged a glance, one of quiet understanding. Robert looked at the group again. Number, you won't be terminated. Relief washed over their faces, but it didn't last long. Instead, Robert continued, you'll be the first to undergo our new training program. And then, you'll help implement it across all our properties. Bradley blinked. Sir? Firing you would be easy, Robert said. But having you help transform our culture, that's far more valuable. You've experienced firsthand how bias leads to bad decisions. That makes you perfect ambassadors for change. Beth smiled at his words, her approval clear. Sometimes our worst mistakes, she added, can become our greatest contributions, if we're willing to learn from them. Emma finally found her voice. Why would you even give us that chance? After what we did? Beth answered before Robert could. Because everyone deserves a chance to grow and change, including you. Robert nodded. Starting tomorrow, Bradley, you'll work with HR to build our anti-bias training. Emma, you'll be reassigned temporarily to our community outreach program. He turned to Frank. And you'll help rewrite our entire security protocol to keep people safe without stripping away their dignity. All 3 stood taller, still ashamed but no longer defeated. One more thing, Robert added. You'll each spend 1 day volunteering at my wife's art program. I want you to see what it looks like when people are valued for who they are, not what they wear. Beth's eyes shimmered. This wasn't about punishment. It was about transformation. That'll be all for now, Robert said. Return to your duties. We'll meet again tomorrow. As they exited one by one, each staff member paused to apologize to Beth. She nodded in acknowledgement. Not angry, not gloating, just human. When the door closed behind them, Robert's business tone faded. He crossed to Beth and took her hands. I'm so sorry you had to go through that, he said softly. Beth squeezed his hands. I'm not. He blinked, surprised. You're not? She shook her head. What happened today was awful, but it happens to people every day. People who don't have a billionaire husband to step in. At least now, something good might come of it. Robert smiled the kind of smile only she ever saw. That's why I married you, he said. Your ability to find purpose, even in pain. Beth picked up her backpack and her trucker cap. So, about that room service and hot bath you promised me? 3 months later, Beth stood in the Mitchell Grand's main lobby, watching something extraordinary. Bradley, the same man who once tried to throw her out, was now politely escorting an elderly woman in a simple house dress to the elevator. Not just politely, genuinely. With the same respect he'd give royalty. Robert appeared beside her. "Quite a change," he said. Beth nodded. "The numbers show it too. Guest satisfaction is up 23% across all properties." What had started as a crisis had become a company-wide revolution. The Dignity for All initiative was now in every Mitchell hotel. And to everyone's surprise, Bradley had become its most passionate advocate. "He's leading another training session today," Robert added. "He wants to take the program international next month." Beth smiled. Sometimes, people just need the opportunity to be better. Across the lobby, Emma emerged from a side office guiding a young man in a wheelchair. Of all the transformations, hers had been the most dramatic. After spending time in Beth's art program, she had asked for permanent reassignment. Now, she ran a program offering internships to disadvantaged youth. "Mrs. Mitchell," Emma called out. "This is Marcus. He's starting in our culinary training program today." Beth greeted him warmly. "He was one of my students last year. Has an incredible eye for detail." Robert shook Marcus's hand. "The executive chef is excited to have you," he said with a smile. Emma led the young man toward the kitchens. Beth looked across the lobby and spotted Frank. He now personally trained all security staff. The protocols had been completely rewritten, balancing safety with dignity. Beth looked at Robert. "Your mistake turned into something kind of amazing." Robert chuckled. "My mistake? You mean marrying an art teacher who wears trucker caps into five-star hotels?" He pulled her close. "Best mistake I ever made." At the entrance, they paused in front of a new plaque. It read, "At Mitchell Luxury Properties, true luxury means treating every person with dignity and respect. We judge not by appearance, but by recognizing the worth in each individual." Below it, a quote Beth had chosen. "We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike." Mrs. Pembroke, the woman who'd tried to speak up that day, approached them. "Mrs. Mitchell," she said, "I've been meaning to thank you." Beth raised her brows. "Thank me? For what?" "For changing this place. I've stayed in luxury hotels all my life. But this is the first one with a soul." She smiled softly. "My granddaughter volunteers at your art program now. She says it's changed her life." As Mrs. Pembroke walked away, Beth and Robert stepped into the sunlight outside. People from all walks of life moved down the streets, each with their own story. "You know what the best part is?" Beth asked. "What's that?" Robert replied. "This isn't just about a hotel anymore. Everyone who's been touched by this change, Bradley, Emma, Frank, they'll never look at people the same way again. And neither will the guests who witness it. One small ripple," Robert said thoughtfully, "becoming a wave." As they walked together, Beth in her casual clothes, still wearing her trusty trucker cap. They passed a street artist, painting portraits on the sidewalk. Beth stopped, admiring his work, and struck up a conversation. What started as polite curiosity quickly turned into a deep discussion about technique and emotion. Robert stood back, watching her, the woman he loved, so effortlessly seeing the humanity in a stranger. That night, on their drive back to the countryside, Beth looked out at the city lights. "Thinking about something?" Robert asked. "Just about what happened 3 months ago," she replied. "How something painful turned into something beautiful." "That's your gift," Robert said, "finding beauty where others see problems." Beth turned and smiled. "No, that's our gift. And think of all the people who will never know they were judged by their appearance because of what we started." As the city faded behind them, both knew the truth. Real change doesn't live in policy. It lives in moments. Moments where people are seen, heard, respected. And sometimes, it all begins with a woman in a trucker cap walking into a luxury hotel, and refusing to be defined by appearances. Stories like Beth's remind us that real change often starts with one person who chooses to stand up. Has something like this ever happened to you? Were you judged by how you looked instead of who you are? Share your story in the comments. You never know who you might inspire. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. We share new, powerful stories every week, stories that just might change your heart or your perspective. From all of us here, remember, true worth isn't about how you look. It's about how you treat others. See you in the next video.